Good morning. You're listening to Insurance Matchmaking, your path to health, life, and Medicare coverage with Matt Libby Insurance. And now, sharing his knowledge, here's your host, Matt Libby.
All right, and good morning. Welcome back to Insurance Matchmaking. Did you get all your milk, bread, and eggs as you're listening to this? So the snow may already be here, but I know the forecast is looking kind of wicked this weekend. A couple things came up this week that I thought I might want to address here. Got a client who is on a Medicare Advantage Plan now due to disability, so not 65 yet, but will turn 65. I can't remember now if it's June or July, but a little bit later in the year. And the question arose about drug coverage. We've talked about how with the Inflation Reduction Act putting the cap on, a hard cap on the drug cost. And, of course, in 2025, that was $2,000. And this year, in 2026, it's $2,100. It went up $100. Going from a Medicare Advantage plan, and the reason I bring that up is, I've said this before, but maybe you've missed it, is when you turn 65, you get another enrollment just like everybody else turning 65. And you have that 6-month window that you can get a Medicare Supplement in place without any underwriting, just like anybody else just turning 65. And generally, because you're on a Medicare Advantage, and I recommend my under 65 clients is go ahead and get a Medicare Advantage. Yes, there are some hassles when it comes to networks and prior authorization, things like that. But those usually become more of an issue when you're in your 70s and 80s and in and out of the hospital and maybe having to spend some time in a skilled nursing facility or moving into assisted living and nursing homes. They like their residents to not have a Medicare Advantage plan because they do have some in-house healthcare providers, and so they may or may not be in network with certain Medicare plans. They may not be in network with certain Medicare plans, and they may have they just like to be able to bill Medicare and not have to try to bill a Advantage plan. So they like their residents to be either on a Medicare Supplement or just on original Medicare and with a drug plan. So what happens is, like I said, you go on Medicare under 65 because you're disabled. You have some form of disability because you got awarded Medicare under age 65. The Medicare Supplement companies don't want to insure you. And the reason for that is because you're going to have more claims, and so it cuts into their profit. Those plans are designed just to be a secondary to your Medicare, and they design their premiums to cover those expenses where they still make a profit. And there's some people that you're going to lose money on. They know that. They want to minimize how many people they're losing money on, so they have enough people that they're still clearing a profit on to make a substantial profit. So that being said, a Medicare Supplement, basically it's cost prohibitive for individuals under 65. They cost more. It's kind of funny. You actually get a break on the premium when you turn 65 versus being under 65. And generally that's if you change plans. I don't think they drop it if you just turn 65 and we're already paying that higher premium. I think it stays. So it makes sense. Even if you did get a Medicare Supplement prior to age 65, but you're turning 65, come see me. Let's switch your plan. We'll use that guaranteed acceptance to get you on a different plan and get that rate down to where it should be for someone that is 65 and not someone under 65. So that's why I recommend going with an Advantage when you're under 65 because, you've seen the ads. You've heard me talk about it. Those are generally a zero premium. They come with the extra benefits like dental and vision, over-the-counter allowances, sometimes the food cards. Those are getting very rare. Don't call. It's kind of funny. I was on a training yesterday. They were doing some role playing and just kind of what the sales agent was saying to the person who was quote unquote shopping for insurance. Now, don't call any more of those ads that you see on the TV or you get something in the mail about the food cards or something. Call me if you have questions on that. And that's what I tell my clients. And I'll have some comment. Hey, I saw this ad. I was like, it's junk. I got this thing in the mail. It's junk. Don't call those 800 numbers. They're just trying to get you to call in so they can switch you to another plan. And especially if you're one of my clients, I painstakingly went through your options and pick the plan that I felt was the best fit for you. We're not supposed to use superlatives. We're not supposed to say this is the best plan, this plan's better than that plan. But we kind of play with the language, but to say, this is the best fit for you, or this is the right plan for you. And that's true, and those are true statements. But if we just say this plan's better, we can't say that. We legally cannot say that this plan's better. But we can say this plan's going to fit you better. In general, it may have to do with your prescriptions, because they don't cover every prescription. They have to cover certain classes of prescriptions. So as long as they've got one drug that's in a certain class, they can say, well, we'll cover this one. Well, maybe you've tried that one before and it didn't work. Your doctor switched to another one that's actually helping you. But then you change plans and they don't cover it. Or you get that annual notice of change in September and they say, hey, we're no longer going to cover this drug. We're replacing it with this one. So that's something between you, your doctor, your pharmacist, the insurance company, and you can request what's called formulary exceptions. They also do what's called step therapy, is if your prescription isn't on their formulary, they say, well, try this one for 30 days and see how that goes. But if you've already done that before and you already know it doesn't work, that's when you get your doctor involved and have them submit for a formulary exception. Now, the downside of a formulary exception is they're going to place that drug on a higher tier than it would normally be. So say it's a brand name, they're going to put it up there on tier 4, and you're going to pay a higher percentage of the cost. Some plans don't have the deductible on tier 3, the preferred brands, but the tier 4 and tier 5, they do. In most plans, that if they have a deductible, it's at least tier 3 through 5, but there are a few Advantage plans. I don't think I've seen it on just a drug plan that there's no deductible on tier 3. Now, other states that may be, I haven't seen it here in Tennessee. But the issue there again is on those drugs. I was saying what's best. Or the other thing is, if your doctors are all in network, because you can have a plan that's out there's got great benefits. It's got, maybe the lowest max out of pocket, a very low hospital copay, a very generous over-the-counter benefit, or a Part B give back. It can have a lot of good bells and whistles. But if you have to change doctors, that may not be the plan that you want. I mean, some people are like, no, I was kind of tired of that doctor anyway. Let's take a look at that plan. Let's find a doctor that takes it. Those plans with richer benefits can be a great fit. But a lot of times, I did it on my own. And if you've listened to me a while, I'm retired military. I have what's called TRICARE for life. And I do have a Medicare Advantage plan. People say, well, if you turn 65, what would you do? I said, well, I always have to say, well, I actually am on Medicare now, and my situation's a little different than yours. And if I didn't have TRICARE for life, I would have a Medicare Supplement. I will tell you, full disclosure. But because I have TRICARE for life, I don't need a Medicare Supplement. I'd be paying for something that just duplicates my TRICARE, so I don't need that. But I can take advantage of the extra benefits of a Medicare Advantage plan. I have a Part B give back. I have over-the-counter benefits. I don't pay for my dental plan. I don't have a separate premium for my dental plan. I still have some cost with my dental, but I'm not paying extra for a plan. So those are some benefits that I use. And it's funny because when I look on a lot of my like Facebook groups, and somebody will ask a question, because we get a lot of new agents on these groups, and they encounter something and they think it's the strangest thing in the world. And gee, has anybody else run into this? And yes, we all have. and then I say that. I mean, I've been doing this for 11 years now, and there's still things come up, and I have to put it to the group and say, hey, I hadn't run into this before. Who else has had this? And go for that. But they'll say, well, I got this person who has TRICARE, and there'll be a whole leave them alone. Don't mess up their TRICARE. And it's so funny because, I are one, as they say. And I usually will comment on there, yes, there are some things, nuances that you need to make sure they're aware of. Doesn't mean that they can't have a Medicare Advantage plan. Now, we do not do what we call MAPD, a Medicare Advantage with prescription drug. We do not do a plan that includes the Part D for someone on TRICARE. They do not need the drug coverage. And the main reason you're going for the plan is you're going for those extra benefits. The funny thing I tell people, because it's actually, to me, it's sometimes a little harder to explain it to someone who uses the VA, because you have to explain the network to them. But the thing is, for a veteran that uses the VA, the network only applies to if you want to use a doctor or a facility and you're using your Medicare plan. Because if you're on that community plan, or it's not community plan, it's not the right term, community care, that the VA is saying, hey, we're backed up, we'll go ahead and go see this civilian doctor and we'll pay for it. You do not need your Medicare. You don't use Medicare for that. In fact, I tell my TRICARE for Life, or not TRICARE for Life, but my VA clients, if you go to the hospital, and make sure your family knows, keep that Medicare card in your wallet. Give them your VA card. Now, if it comes back and VA says, no, that wasn't service related, or for whatever reason we're not paying for that, then you give them your Medicare information. Because if they charge your Medicare first, and Medicare's already processed payment, VA will not pay anything unless you can get the hospital, and it's because it's usually hospital, it's not usually a doctor's office, but that caregiver, if you get them to refund Medicare and then resubmit the bill to VA, and you should be able to get it paid by VA. But if Medicare has paid, VA will not. Now, TRICARE works a little different, and that's why I say my TRICARE clients, they understand networks. We had to deal with networks when we were under 65 and had TRICARE. Not every doctor takes TRICARE, whether you have TRICARE Prime or TRICARE Select, depending on where you live. I had TRICARE Prime when I was still living near Fort Campbell when I moved to Oak Ridge, and I've never understood this part, because it was like, well, if you're further away from a military installation, then you can't have TRICARE Prime. And it's like, I wasn't using Fort Campbell's facilities, I was using civilian doctors, so I don't know why that made a difference. But that's how they do the rules. But so I'm saying, TRICARE people are used to dealing with networks. So if you pick a doctor, so generally you want to keep with the doctor you have, so you find out which Medicare Advantage plans they take, and then you look at the other benefits. Are you going for the one that has the most Part B give back, or maybe you're looking for one that has more dental, or again, making sure that your doctor's network. Because I ran into an issue for myself. I'm not getting the richest Part B give back because of my CPAP machine, and I had to make sure that I had a plan that was going to work with, and I guess I can use the name. I use Buckeye Home Health here to get my CPAP supplies, and I actually signed myself up on the wrong plan at first because I was going for the richer benefits in the network change. So I had to change plans based on the network. So sometimes it's not, the Part B give back is not the only reason to pick a certain Medicare Advantage plan, and especially when you have TRICARE for Life, it's more critical. Or if you have other procedures that come up, and I realized I started talking about question a client brought up about moving to Medicare a Medicare, or changing a Medicare from a Medicare Advantage to a Medicare Supplement after age 65, and I didn't really address that, and we're up on the break. So when we come back from the break, I will go into the situation that I was talking about with that changing plans because of turning 65, and we'll talk to you after these commercials.
It's a new year, and it's time to drop old habits like slow internet and bad cell service. Make 2026 a year for better connections with TriLite. Get gig speed connectivity at home and crystal clear wireless wherever you roam, all backed by the friendly and local TriLite team. Bundle to save and start the new year right with TriLite. Better internet, better wireless, better year. To learn more, call 833-847-0824 or visit trilite.net.
Dreams made real. It's more than a slogan, it's a mission. Join Upper Cumberland Habitat for Humanity for the first ever White County Dream Builders Luncheon on February the 10th from 12 to 1 p.m. at Life Church in Sparta. Be part of a powerful hour that supports affordable housing right here in the Upper Cumberland. General admission is just $20, or elevate your impact as a $250 table host. Scan the QR code on our social pages to purchase tickets. The White County Dream Builders Luncheon, February the 10th at Life Church in Sparta.
And now, back to Insurance Matchmaking with Matt Libby Insurance.
All right, welcome back to Insurance Matchmaking. As I promised before the break, I was going to talk about a situation come up with a client that will be turning 65 but is already on a Medicare Advantage plan. And as I mentioned, it's going to affect the Part D coverage a little bit more because the question came up, and I didn't get time to research it because, like I said, I just talked to this client yesterday. But I do know that max out of pocket on the drug coverage, if you have already paid into drugs, that carries forward from one drug plan to another. The health plans, that doesn't carry over. So if you were, but it's not gonna have as big effect on someone going from Medicare Advantage to a Medicare Supplement on the healthcare costs. Other health insurance, you switch from one plan to another, or we're in what's called the open enrollment period for Medicare Advantage now. That you can, if you found out that maybe I shouldn't have changed my plan during AEP, or maybe my doctor's no longer in network with the plan that I have, but I want to keep the doctor, so I need to find a plan that my doctor will take. Those kind of changes, if you've paid into your max out of pocket, or you've had health care already, and maybe you've had something major, say you've had a surgery or something, and this applies to not just Medicare, but also like the Affordable Care Act plans. If you've already come close to your deductible, your max out of pocket because of some health issues, might not be a good idea, is the old saying, changing horses midstream, because your deductibles and max out of pocket, that all resets if you change plans. So it may not be the right thing, even though you may qualify for some type of special enrollment to change your plans. But if you've gone to the doctor once or twice or haven't been to the doctor yet, that's not going to make much difference if you change plans. It's not really going to affect your out-of-pocket. Now, your prescription coverage, on the other hand, yes, that does make a difference. Generally, you have to pay a deductible on your Part D, on like the Tier 3 and up. Again, as I mentioned, you may have a deductible for those, so maybe you've already filled that GLP-1 shot, or that Eliquis or Xarelto, some of those high-cost drugs that you're going to have to pay, that $615 deductible. Now, if you've had to pay the $615 deductible, then I'm definitely very confident that that's going to carry over, and you're not going to have to pay another $615 Part D deductible. What I'm wondering is, and I think and again, I didn't research it, but like some of the Medicare Advantage plans have like a $200 or $250 deductible. They don't have the full $615. That if you satisfied that deductible and then you change drug plans, but the drug plan you change to now has a $615 deductible, do you have to come up with that $415 even though you already met a $200 deductible? That I'm not positive on, but I do know what you have spent on your prescriptions is going towards that $2,100 max out of pocket. If you've already hit that $2,100 max out of pocket, you're not going to have a deductible. So I'm thinking, and again, I need to double check on this and I'll try to get that answer to you next week, is that if you satisfy the deductible on your current plan and then you change plans, that it's marked, it's marked that you've met your Part D deductible. I'm not sure, because Part B deductible is different. A lot of people ask, what's the deductible on their Medicare Supplement? All Medicare Supplements, if you weren't on Medicare prior to 2020, you have the Part B deductible, but that deductible is not on your Medicare Supplement. It is Part B. You have to meet the Part B deductible with Medicare before Medicare starts paying their 80%. So then when Medicare starts paying the 80%, the Medicare Supplement will pay the 20% because you've met your deductible. And even if you change Medicare Supplement plans, you don't have to do that deductible again, because that is a Medicare deductible, not your Medicare Supplement deductible. So that can confuse things a little bit. Not to be confused with the high deductible plan G. I've talked about that. I'm not going to go into that one today. There's definitely some different nuances there. I probably could spend a whole show on just that subject. But the Part B deductible, that's yours. And that's the other thing, and I'm not positive on, because maybe you've spent maybe you had an outpatient surgery or something on an Advantage plan, and now you switch to original Medicare because you're turning 65. Does what you had to pay into copays count as your Part B deductible? That, again, is something I need to research. I did not get that answer. But you may have the Part B deductible for say you go to a Plan G after coming off a Medicare Advantage plan. You may still have to do the Part B deductible, even though you've already had some health care during the year. Or I think Medicare looks at it, though, as if you had the health care, the Medicare Advantage plan basically has covered your Part B deductibles. I think you're credited with the Part B being met if you have had health care services that have gone towards that. And like I said, even a doctor visit where you don't have a copay, but there would be a Medicare charge. It still goes into the system. There's still a bill there because they are billing. So that may count as meeting your Part B deductible, but I'm not sure if somebody else is paying it, does that count? That is something I need to research, and I apologize I don't have that answer. I don't have that many clients that when they turn 65 that have a Medicare Advantage, that have elected to go ahead and get a Medicare Supplement. Most of them have their plan's working for them. Networks haven't been an issue. All their doctors are in network, and they like that zero premium. So there is that situation. The other thing on that, just to kind of bring that up, is also when you're turning 65, when you're that age, you do have a guaranteed issue for hospital indemnity plans. Now, even if you are staying with your Advantage plan, that might still be a good idea to maybe add. If you don't go to the Medicare Supplement, let's go ahead and add a hospital indemnity plan at that time, because all of the hospital indemnity plans have a guaranteed issue from age 64 and a half to age 65 and a half. And I say, now, some of them go older, but I'm saying all of them, if it's a hospital indemnity plan that they write, to seniors that are designed to go, the way they design these plans is it goes along, they match up with Medicare Advantage. So it'll have, so much per day that you're in the hospital, and it can be 3 days, and some plans will go up all the way up to 31 days, so much per day. Now, the more days you pick, the higher the daily allowance you pick, will raise the rate on that plan. But a lot of people, maybe they have a $300 copay for 5 days with their Medicare Advantage plan. So they'll get a hospital indemnity that will reimburse $300 per day up to 5 days. And some plans you have to go 3 or 6. They don't dip, you can't go 3, 4, 5, 6. And then other plans you can pick it for 1 day, or you can pick it for 31 days. And again, the rate change. And then some of them have just a lump sum. Now that's the one, as I touched on a little bit about high deductible G, that I encourage a lot of people to consider. They want a Medicare Supplement because they like the freedom of the no networks. But they like the cost of the zero premium Advantage plan. Or even if you do a zero premium Advantage plan, I highly encourage that you consider a hospital indemnity and also cancer coverage, because those are the things that are going to make, especially a cancer diagnosis is where you're most apt to hit that max out of pocket, especially if you're having to do a lot of chemo and radiation therapy. And you can get those plans. And the cancer plans aren't, they're basically, I like to say they're guaranteed issues. They're not quite, but basically if you haven't had cancer, or it's been at least 5 years on some plans it's 10. But if you haven't had cancer or haven't had cancer in the last few years, you can qualify for a cancer plan. And in some companies, they're a little stricter. There are plans out there that will go on family history. If you have parents or siblings that had cancer, you might not be able to get that cancer plan. Of course, those are the ones that are usually the least expensive because they're stricter on their underwriting. The family history comes into play. Height and weight comes into play. So if they do that, those are going to be more expensive. Then there are plans that if you are a smoker or a tobacco user, I'm trying to think on the one. I think it's just tobacco. Some plans, again, will differentiate if you were a cigarette smoker or whether you're just a tobacco user. And vaping and nicotine patches and things like that. If you are taking nicotine, most insurance companies are going to classify you as a smoker because you have nicotine. And one of the reasons they do that is if they do full underwriting or order a paramed, they're going to test you for nicotine. They're not going to test you for tar and it's tar and nicotine. So the ads used to say, but they're just testing for nicotine. So if you have nicotine in your system, you're not going to qualify as a non-smoker or a non-tobacco user. So just go on that. And there's some companies that if you smoke marijuana they classify you as a smoker, and then others it's only if you smoke tobacco. So it varies from company to company, and that's one of the reasons why you want to deal with the local agent who knows the plans and is will work with you and see what's the better fit for you. But on those hospital indemnity plans, like I said, they'll have a reimbursement for a hospitalization, for outpatient surgery, ambulance, getting MRIs. Things. You can piecemeal them. But as saying, if you do like a high deductible G Medicare supplement, then I would recommend you get at a minimum, get something for a lump sum for hospitalization, and then maybe also for cancer, because those are the two things that will make you hit that max out of pocket on a high deductible G. And I say max out of pocket, it works more like a Medicare Advantage max out of pocket or a traditional health plan versus actually being a deductible. Because one of the beauties of that high deductible plan is you do have the Part B deductible, and then Medicare starts paying their 80%. The downside of those plans are you do have to meet the Part A deductible. A Plan G or Plan N, you don't have to worry about that $1,700 Part A deductible if you're hospitalized. The other thing is, and that's why I say get a lump sum for hospitalization, and then you don't have to worry about that deductible. You don't have to cover the whole, out-of-pocket cap for the high deductible plan. And you don't have to get anything, but the reason I recommend those, I wasn't going to talk much on this, but where I recommend if you consider a high deductible G with some supplemental coverage is, and I see supplemental there is not as in a Medicare supplement, but the supplemental like a high hospital indemnity or cancer coverage or heart attack, stroke, or accident plan, something that could land you in the hospital, or a high cost visit to the emergency room. Now, of course, the emergency room is not going to be really a high cost other than up to that maximum, because after you pay the Part B deductible, the Medicare is going to pay 80% of that emergency room. So you may not hit that max out of pocket on the high deductible G, but those plans are really low. I mean, they're like $100 less or more than $100 less than a traditional Plan G. When they do have rate increases, they're usually a lower percentage than your traditional G, and then even if they are the same percentage, you're started out at a much lower monthly premium, so the percentage increase is not going to be near as much as it would be when applied to a traditional G or a Plan N. And then your hospital indemnity plan or cancer plan, those premiums don't go up as you age, so you can lock in really great coverage for less than a traditional Plan G. And as you get older, you're going to have very little rate increases. Now, the cap on those plans will go up, and I'm going to work on. I was watching a YouTube this week, and the guy had a chart on it, and it's on Medicare.gov. So I just need to go and find the chart, but it shows what Part B premium was for the last several years, and it also shows this is what the high deductible G cap has been, and then it does do some projections that what they think it should be in the next few years. So you can kind of estimate. So I always tell people just kind of figure it's roughly about $3,000 out of pocket. So it's kind of like having a Medicare Advantage. Most Medicare Advantage plans are in the $4,000 to $5,000 range for your max out of pocket. There are some plans that have lower, but you're also paying something extra on those plans to have the lower copays and the lower max out of pocket. So there, in a lot of ways, a high deductible G can fit that need that a Medicare Advantage does. Now, it's not going to come with the extra dental, vision, and hearing or the over-the-counter benefits. So there are some, as we say, fringe benefits you might be giving up, but you're not going to, but you don't have to worry about the networks, and your costs can still be around what you would spend on an Advantage plan. So it looks like I'm running out of time here. So as always, stay tuned to Grace 107.7. Come listen to us at 10 o'clock on Saturdays. And remember, at Matt Libby Insurance, we can cover you head to toe. It doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. And we'll talk next week on Insurance Matchmaking.
You've been listening to Insurance Matchmaking with Matt Libby, your path to health, life, and Medicare coverage with Matt Libby Insurance.